5 o'clock. We'll stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi everyone, my name is Deacon Steve Noyes from St. Rose, and Carrie reached out to me to see if I could do an opening prayer for you this evening. I thought it was interesting, as I was thinking about coming in to do this evening, that scripture scholars talk about in Genesis when God hands over creation to Adam, he uses words that are very consistent with the words that God uses when he bestows priesthood on humanity. And priesthood is a ministry of sacrifice. And so I think it's very interesting, right, that each time you gather here, you're offering a bit of a sacrifice of your own. A little bit of your time, a little bit of your talent, of your energy, your intention for the community. It also reminds us that each of us in our own particular way is responsible for nurturing what God has created. So in that spirit this evening, I offer you this prayer from the Book of Blessings. We stand before you, Holy Spirit, conscious of our shortcomings, but aware that we gather in your name. Come to us, remain with us, and enlighten our hearts. Give us light and strength to know your will, to make it your own, our own, to live it in our lives. Guide us by your wisdom. Support us by your power, for you are God, sharing the glory of Father and Son. You desire justice for all. Enable us to uphold the rights of others. Do not allow us to be misled by ignorance or corrupted by fear or favor. Unite us to yourself in the bond of love and keep us faithful to all that is true. As we gather in your name, may we temper justice with love, so that all our decisions may be pleasing to you and earn the reward promised to good and faithful servants. You live and reign with the Father and the Son, one God forever and ever. Amen. Have a nice week.
Okay. First item on the agenda, the acceptance of ARPA funds. Federal government, through the American Resources Plan Act, approved additional funding to address the impact of COVID-19 on local governments. The town of Littleton has applied prior to August 18th of 21 deadline, and we received $307,264.11. Additional $307,264.13 in 2022. There are 5 categories that the funds can be used for: public health expenditure, address the negative impact of impacts of COVID-19, to replace the lost public sector revenue, provide premium pay for essential workers, invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And the Board of Selectmen will approve any expenditures for the 2022 ARPA funds. Just like we did last year, and part of it was the purchase of the Suburban, of the town, actually, for the fire department, which came from these ARPA funds. This is the public hearing for the test, will be 15 minutes.
Yeah, but a motion to open.
Okay,
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
And that's now at 5:05, so that should take us to 5:20.
We will take discussion on that.
Yes.
Any discussion on the ARPA funds? Okay,
Ask me just to sign.
yes, Jim has a sheet here because Vicky is on vacation. And he's gonna pass it around, just asking you to sign it so we know who is here.
I appreciate that.
Actually, I do have a quick question. For the second round here of the ARPA funding, are there any ideas on where, areas of projects where it could be spent on?
The goal, Robert, is to, as we're doing the '23 budget preparation, is to look at any piece of capital equipment for fire, police, and DPW, which is now part of first responder system, to see if there are capital equipment we can buy out of here, which would negate them going on a warrant article, and therefore would have a positive impact on the tax rate if we can buy them through here, so it would have no impact on the current taxes. That's the goal. But all of that would have to be approved by the board, budget committee, and then, I don't know if the voters would have to be on that if it's not part of the budget, where we did it as capital, but that's the goal, is to use it where we can to help buy that equipment so we keep the tax rate down.
So, next item on the agenda. Presentations. So we're doing the approval of the minutes of the last few meetings for the Board of Selectmen.
I'll make a motion that we approve the July 25th, 2022 Board of Selectmen meeting minutes.
Okay, I'll
I'll
second. Okay,
Go ahead.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then we have the 7:25, the non-public meeting. I went over those minutes, and I'll make the motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
7:28:22, Board of Selectmen had a work session.
I'll make a motion to accept those minutes from July 28th, 2022. I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
8:9:22, we had a non-public meeting for the Board of Selectmen.
I'll make a motion that we accept the August 9th, 2022 Board of Selectmen non-public meeting minutes. I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That was pretty good. Town managers updates.
Yes, sir, I just have a couple. First, as I reported to you last week, the 3-year litigation case involving the 25 Amanuset building and that road project was settled. The 25 Amanuset building will be taken down this week, depending on weather and what have you. It could be by Thursday, maybe Friday, at the latest. And the project has timelines, and so mid-October is the proposed deadline of not just the building, but then completion of the road project and all the other work that was on hold. The good thing for the town on this is the EDA could have and should have closed out the grant in February, but due to the progress that we were getting on negotiations, they kept that open. So the town will still be eligible for the $90,000 that will be remaining on there, and that will help offset some of our costs in reference to the settlement. And I know that's been going on for quite a number of years, and so it'd be nice to see those concrete barriers down and the road fixed, and that building.
How is the rest of the project finishing?
DOT contacted me today on Cottage Street. As you know, we've had some discussion on the railroad hardware. And I've been following up with them, and they apologize for the delay. But when they got back with me today, they had one of their engineers update and said that due to the fact that all of that equipment, and even the posts that are holding up the cross beams, no longer meet standards in reference to railroad crossing or signage. Apparently, I guess it takes more bolts and other process. So from a liability standpoint, they're taking all of that down, and it will start in April of '23 when they do the Cottage Street project, which also will be tied into our sidewalk project on Cottage Street. But they are open to any ideas that the town may want to have in reference to signage on Cottage that follows the DOT guidelines. But just that hardware itself has to come from a liability standpoint, and leaving it and turning it to us, they say, doesn't relieve them from the liability, since their engineers have already indicated that that could be a potential problem.
So we can request signage there, is that what it is, Jim? And
Yeah,
talk about
we
it?
would have to go back and kind of propose what you were looking for, an idea, and they would be working, but I know there's some rules in reference to height and things in reference to trucks and vehicles, so they're not opposed to working with the town on signage back there, but it's just that particular apparatus doesn't serve the purpose that we're looking for.
So you have gotten back to the Athletic Committee to let them know, because they were the ones that.
Yeah, I just got that today, and I was briefing you all, and then I'll do that tomorrow in my folder.
Good,
Okay?
thank you.
And thank you for reminding me, and I will put a note here. All right. The parking lot barn project had been put on hold for a bit while we were talking lot line. That started last week and should be finished in the next couple of weeks. Met with Chairman Emerson today, and so once that's done, if there's an issue with the lot line, that can be revisited in terms of there, but that project should hopefully be done by the end of August, and maybe in the first or second week of September. The parking lot public identification signs, the ABCD, those signs have now been made. They were delivered to the highway department, and they're in the process of coordinating both the installations, the locations, and that should start possibly next week, and so it should finish hopefully no later than the early part of September. So I'm going to apologize. The goal was to have them out for the summer. We missed this one, but we'll definitely have them up for the 2023. DRA had contacted me in reference to commercial reevaluations. As you all know, we have spent a significant sum on both legal and appraisal involving just a portion of the commercial reevaluations. And we wanted to know that the town was going to be adding this next year's value. We did not add the 22 for the 23. I told them my recommendation was going to be to allow the appraiser to continue their work, but all of that should go towards the 2025 reval year. Just based on the history from the first 10 or 12 cases, almost every one of them was challenged, and just think based on what we've spent, it might be ideal to do that on the 25-year cycle period when all of that is done. And the DRA would be very supportive if the board took that action. So I don't know if it's a formal vote to say to add or to not add, but I will say it in adding it. I know you probably get a lot of abatement files, and we'll go through a significant amount, and I'll show you when we get to the budget report what we've spent already. So the recommendation would be to allow them to do their work all in preparation for 2025, and not to start adding this incrementally and finding each one of these on a basis. So that's a recommendation in terms of there. So you all can think about that and decide what to do. I find it easier in the ones we've negotiated. work out deals where it's either credits, or reduction in the value for the future, because I'm trying to minimize as many payments as possible, because these payments are being made out of tax dollars from 20 and 19, and those project money got spent, so we're actually using new tax dollars to offset that, so that might just provide us a little breathing room through the reval period to get to 2025, and so that's a recommendation.
But you don't need a vote tonight, we'll just wait for.
Well, if you were ready to, you could, but if you want to wait, we could do that on September 12th. Because I know we're getting tight with, you know, how they set the valuations, and you know better than me the form numbers, so I don't want to misquote a form or whatever that's there, but I at least would, right now, would be inclined to tell Richard that whatever he gets in, just to hold those in a folder, which we did in 2022. Because we've got 2 cases left, and my goal is to resolve those. One hasn't gone to court yet, so I'm hoping we resolve the last 2. Again, if you, I know things not thrown at you, this was a call as of Friday, the agenda had gone out, but I did let the DRA know that I would address that with you. And again, just their response was that they would look favorably upon delaying adding those values into the structure. So if you wanted to make a motion saying that's okay, you can tonight. If you want to maybe wait for the meeting as well.
We'll be talking. Okay.
I'll put it over here, we'll put it on the 9th.
Next agenda, yeah.
Okay. Kind of an odd item, but I want to tell you about it. I've authorized the purchase of 3 laptops for the supervisors of the checklist. They are to replace 3 laptops that are anywhere from 7 to 10 years old. They should have been part of a capital improvement plan from the former clerk's office. And so the supervisor of the checklist and the clerk are running into problems involving the 22 election. And with all the controversy out there and people lacking faith or whatever, I just wanted to make sure that the supervisor of the checklist had the most updated tool in terms of their. It will cause that particular department line item to go over, but I believe in this case it's justified because Angela inherited a budget and didn't have that opportunity to get that feedback and work done there. And when you see that they were donated computers even when we got them in 2010 and 13, they're not even Windows, they need to be serviced and upgraded. So we've gone on and authorized that. You'll see that probably on next month, year-to-date update when I give you how the departments are doing. So I'm just kind of giving you a little crap that that there'll be a number in there that will.
You don't have the number yet.
Oh yeah, I do the number. Oh goodness. What was it, Angela? About 20.
I think total was gonna be 36.
With the setup and
with
whatever,
the setup fees
about
and
30-some
everything.
thousand,
3,600.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the accurate number will be in your report. I just realized I failed to.
Yeah.
put
No,
that
we're
on.
gonna replace all 3 of them.
Three laptop, 37,000.
No,
100.
3,600.
Oh.
Rudy, it was me with the thousands, okay?
Thank you. No, give me that.
Remember, Rudy, it's the guy who spends like a drunken sailor. I was on the wrong number,
I know
okay?
you are. You're worse than bad.
All right. All right, that's
Thank you.
my update.
We're over 15 minutes.
Good at this and we'll do it yourself.
42 seconds.
Excuse me, I got one on that one there. Those computers in terms were obtained through Plymouth College, part of it in the past. And
They were used when they were donated.
it didn't make any difference. They still may have the access of being able to do that, which didn't cost you anything.
Mr. Hadlock, we had them evaluated by SNS to see if there could be any upgrades or anything. There's a point in time when the operating system.
I didn't ask that. I said, did you check with Plymouth College to see if they've got the availability of giving newer ones that are upgraded that would qualify without spending $3,000 or $4,000?
No, sir, I did not.
Well, that's where we got them from before.
And they were used hand-me-downs, so I wanna make sure that our election.
Well, it doesn't make
funds-
any difference if they're quality in dealing with it, they upgrade and it wouldn't cost you anything. All it makes is one telephone call.
They can't upgrade them. Their IT can't.
No,
do
he's talking about
anything with
getting new ones from the college if they have
Yeah.
SMS.
6-month hand-me-downs.
Well, we didn't get new ones the first time they were used.
So why don't you ask?
Yes,
You might save $3,000 or $4,000.
okay, I'll leave that with you all. We
No, I
purchased
agree.
them from SMS, which is the town's IT provider. They will fit in line with the standard computers in our system and be able to work.
Still cost you $4,000, but you can make a telephone call for.
Okay,
Can I,
we can agree to disagree. That's cool.
Brian, you go ahead.
I'll have to get there, go ahead.
Yes, boss.
We'll save some stuff for public comments at the end.
Okay.
We'll just keep going. So we've run into our, time is up.
Yep, we're up on the,
So now we can close the ARPA funds meeting.
at 5:21.
Is there a motion? Accept.
I'll make a motion to accept $307,264.13 ARPA federal funds awarded to the town on August 1st, 2022. I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion to close the,
I'll make a motion to close public hearing. Second.
carry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda. Back in New Hampshire, good cause abatement, the amount of $9,568.67 for the 2020 tax year. Any discussion on this?
Yeah, I think just to go over it, in June 7, 2021, there was some correspondence back and forth with the bank. And they were under the impression that even though we didn't have an official lease yet, we kind of did because it was still the 8100. So they were under the impression that they would have a good cause abatement that year, and was told that the decision should reduce your annual tax cost, which really isn't a tax cost, it's a good cause abatement, by $9,568.67 using 2020 taxes. They didn't receive that, so it came up again this year. This year's was paid.
Paid this year's, yeah?
Yeah, so what we have to decide is, because they were told they were going to get that good cause abatement, we as a select board would have to authorize that.
So the only misconception I have is they think this is coming every year from here on out.
Yeah.
That's one of my problems. Because the contract we just signed with them said that they were responsible for all taxes. And gone up as much as they've gone up.
See, it's not taxes though, it's, this is where the
Yeah.
wording gets a little crazy. It's a good cause abatement, and that was, based on their square footage, and what they determined their square footage to be, based on the fact that they were going to get a good cause abatement each year. And they were told that we can't do anything about past year's tax bills, but we can ensure that they are not charged from this point forward on the space that the town is leasing.
So there's a
Which, that's,
If Roger, maybe if something helps you on that, you're in a 10-year lease.
right.
So in the negotiation of the new lease, if there's some question on that, that could be negotiated as
Right.
part of that. So then that way you're not obligated, other than right now you're looking at 2020.
Right, because the contract that they signed,
Yeah.
we signed is about, they're responsible for, the taxes, but we're calling it something else, but still at that amount of money that they went up.
And
That's one of my problems. it was $8,700.
And that's why their whole negotiation on the agreement was based on getting the good cause abatement. So their per square footage of, technically at the top end, should be $17 per square foot. And we're negotiating, had negotiated 10 to $12 per square foot. But it was based on the fact that they were going to get that good cause abatement. Otherwise, they probably would have gone up to $14 or $15 per square foot.
Essentially, they have though, because we pay them the abatement and we pay them fees.
Yeah,
They were told that they would get this last year.
so I can agree to make that one-time payment for 2020 and get that out of the way, but I can't agree to anything beyond this.
Right, and moving forward, I don't think we have to. It could be a part of, if we need to stay there,
Yeah, it could be
then we
part-
can negotiate something else, but they were already told that we would do that, so.
This would clear up 20 and 2021. And then
Correct.
the new agreement, that could be addressed, so meaning, because first of all, we don't know if we're gonna be there.
Right.
And if we are, then that'll be a new lease, because the lease expires in June, and so this could be part of that lease discussion. So you're not voting tonight to tie yourself to future
No.
years.
But I will make a motion that we make a payment of $9,568.67 to the Bank of New Hampshire for the 2020 tax year.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I could have a motion to table the Mount Eustace depot.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
More.
You guys are unbelievable. You guys are unbelievable. You guys are bad. You guys are the worst. You talk.
So, now we have, next on the agenda, the town hall staff.
Oh, God, that tomorrow like
And as far as moving forward on things, all I've done is I've looked over what we have in front of us
The actual properties we know.
and the things that have left us
Right.
that were available. Still leaning towards the temporary setup between the fire station and the town DPW.
That can be not just temporary, that can be permanent.
Yeah,
Could I make a suggestion?
yeah.
Because of the complexity of this, I know we're gonna have budget meetings and all coming up, but maybe this is just a workshop that deals just with that, and then all the options, because we've had other folks that contact us about buildings, and maybe that's easier, that nothing is done, in fact, there is a full discussion of the various options.
Just that topic.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's just a suggestion. And then we could,
I would like to see another work session to discuss the town offices.
and then
If you guys want.
we could coordinate with you all on your schedules, it'll be a public meeting, I mean,
Yeah.
everything is
Yeah.
open, just that way, it's that item only, and we're
Right.
just talking about that.
So we can table this for the night?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, and I'll let them know then that we will start the workshop.
New business, planning and zoning, seeking permission to increase the hearing fees.
So it's actually the hearing fee in the newspaper, because
Yes.
the cost has increased and the applicant is responsible to pay that, so I wanted to update our fee schedule to reflect the $60 that we're being charged instead of the 50.
So on the fee schedule, you put the newspaper notice should be 60 and not 50, correct?
Yes, yeah, because the
Both.
cost increased.
The permit fees are on increasing,
Right,
this is just
right.
the town's out of pocket costs.
For both planning and zoning.
Yep.
second, Ted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just pass the buck. Okay, next on the agenda, town clerk, unlicensed dogs.
Hi, so I have been working since the end of April, on the unlicensed dog list. Currently, we have 10 pages of residents that still have not licensed their dogs, and some of them go back as far as 2019. So what the plan is to send out civil forfeitures, via certified mail, and give them until the middle of September to respond, either with licensing their dogs or letting us know if they're deceased or moved out of town or whatever the situation may be. And then at that point, we'd be looking at getting the list to the police department, for them to do their part with summons and whatever needs to be done so we can get these people to license their dogs.
Yeah.
Angie, how many have you been able to filter through here, to see how many of the dog owners have passed away? Because I'm looking at one here, Bill Senecava has passed away. So he did have a poodle.
So some of them, yes, we've been able to filter through. Others, we have not. We actually started with like 20 pages, so we filtered through quite a bit. We've sat and had Billy make phone calls. We've called everybody on this list. Whether people didn't answer, she left messages. I've sent out letters to some that we weren't able to get in touch with via phone. She's left voicemails, some have come in, like I said, we started at 20 pages, so we've got half of them to respond to us at least. But I can definitely take a look at that, maybe run a death report and find out from there if these people were just themselves or if the dog stayed with a wife or a husband or went to children of some sort. I can definitely look at that before I send out forfeiture notices.
So when a dog gets put down by a vet, you get a notification, correct?
They do not.
They do not?
They're supposed to,
Yeah, I
but
thought-
we do not get any notification. We haven't been, at least since I've been in office. I mean, my dog passed away, I had put her down in February, June maybe. And they never sent notification to us that she had passed away. But I think it's a law that they're supposed to.
Right, so I bet there's a lot of misconception there on. But it sure would be nice to get it cleared up, there's a lot of.
So, may I ask a question?
Yeah.
So what happens because when we had to put our dog down several years ago, when I came in to license the two we have currently, I told the town clerk at that time that we had put her down.
Yeah.
And she was still on the books because I did get a phone call.
I don't know what happened before I was in office, I'm not sure,
It was a past administration.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I know that we got a lot of those answers, so, I apologized and I
That's
went
fine.
in and I took them out of the database at that point.
Yeah.
But I can't say why they weren't taken out prior to me being there, I have no idea.
Well, my hat's off to you for doing all this work,
All-
getting it cleaned up.
I'd like to also add that I've been working closely with the town clerk. I don't know why this information wasn't pursued by statute since 2019. We did do it years previously, and we could get the list down to about 9 or 10 people. We'd have to summons those individuals. They would absolutely refuse to pay or register their dogs. No matter what mechanisms in place, unfortunately, some people will be contacted where their pet has passed away. There was a state statute passed to allow the vets to contact or provide that information to the clerks. I don't know why Littleton's not getting it, and again, I can work with you to try to, mend those fences, and maybe that'll help us in the future, but we're kind of stuck with 3 years worth of nothing happening. So the statute requires me to report back to you by August 31st, which I normally would send a letter to the board and it would say, these are the people that remain on the list. We will be summoning them, and the statute also gives us the authority to seize dogs. We're not gonna seize dogs. We're not in that business. We just want them to be compliant with getting their rabies shots and be licensed. So I'm asking that the board also allow me till October 31st, because there's such a big list. There's no way we're gonna be able to act on whatever she provides us by August 31st. So I'm asking you to give me until October 31st. I'll report back to you with our findings and where we are with the list, and then we can go from there. But generally, once they fail to pay their civil forfeiture, which they'll be given the opportunity to do, then we get the list. We'll probably have some volunteers try contacting those people again, and then we'll just do summonses for them.
I mean, that's not unreasonable as far as I'm concerned.
Considering the length of,
Yeah, I mean, we need a motion to.
I'll make that motion that we extend the deadline to October 31st, 2022.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Right.
Okay.
I made the motion, Linda made the motion, Carrie seconded it.
So would it be worth putting a call into the local vets just to tell them this is what we're up against, and could you please notify us?
Yeah, I definitely can do that. I know all of the surrounding vets do send us, rabies vaccinations, so I'm not sure why they
Yeah.
leave the death ones out. Even with our vet, they make you sign a form saying that we give them permission to send the death notice to the town clerk. So I'm not really sure.
I can let you know, a large percentage of the people who own pets go over the border. They're going to St. John's, there's a huge vet
Yeah, the
firm
government.
now that's over there, and I mean, there's a massive amount. And when it comes to putting a dog down, a lot of times it's on the weekends, evenings. I mean, when we had to put our dog down, we had to drive all the way down below the Lakes region. So, yeah, I think that's a lot of it, it's not local.
Yeah, I don't think you've got any local vets. I think that's one of your problems. The vets may not have it because they're all from Vermont. Okay, and by rights, they get a license to practice over here, but I don't think you'll find that they understand the rules and regulations. So probably the smartest thing to do would be to write them and tell them the laws of the state and go on record with it. And I think I would do it basically if you took a radius out of it, and 20 miles, something like that. And allow.
Just for help in trying to get this resolved.
Yeah.
We're familiar with all the vet clinics. We'll reach out to them, and we have 2 here in Littleton
Yep,
that we can work very closely with.
okay.
Are they from Littleton or?
Yes, we have 2 in Littleton. There's one right next door to this facility, and then there's an urgent care facility as well.
I thought those were Vermont wood vets.
No, they're New
No,
Hampshire.
New Hampshire business.
Diane?
With a lot of the veterinarian offices have closed down, and they have moved we're going to Lindenville now for our vet. So the radius really needs to be a little bit wider and broader. And they should be able to Google or put into their system any dogs that have, with Littleton owners that have been put
Right,
down.
just by the address you fill out when you, on the dog report, yeah.
Yeah, so they should be able to give you a list like that too. But I just wanted to let you know that we now have to go to Lindenville to get services.
Thank you. Good. So, moving on. Budget report, ending 7/31/22.
Yeah, Board and Selectmen, got the July report in front of you. And based on the months measured, the budget should be at 41.6% or higher, meaning the department, 41.6% means they're on budget. If that number is higher, that means they're below budget. I've highlighted a a couple of areas that are over, and all but 2 of them are to deal with timing of payments. So they're not over, it's just the timing on how they go. The 2 that we are over is legal, and we're 14.9%, 09% over. And this includes the significant expense and legal costs concerning tax abatements, 25 Amanusic, and labor this last year. And also any of the costs in reference to the appraisers in defending the abatement come out of the legal line item, because I can't take it out of their contract line item because that's set up specifically to pay the contract. We have 2 cases pending in 2022, with 2 businesses. And ideally, we would be able to resolve those pending your decision on the next round of businesses being added. If you feel inclined to let them do their work, but it's not added to the books, we may be able to dramatically reduce the number of abatements and legal cases next year. But that's just a significant one. We've also resolved the 25 Amanusic. That was over a 3-year process, and just on that alone, when I'm able to, I got another invoice that came in today that had been in the 150,000 range. And so I think we're very fortunate to have gotten a settlement that the town's portion is 90,000. And of that, a portion of that will be able to be covered out of the grant, so we may be down in the 30,000 range. We've already received a $90,000 check from AGB, and we have received a $90,000 check from Calder, which is their groups of that. So we've got funding to use for going forward on that item. The other one that is over is personnel. And apparently that was the line item where if an employee retired or left, their PTO payout was out of there. And we had a significant retirement, from the police department. So they had not budgeted. It's kind of hard to number on there. If you budget 100% of everybody's PTO, we'd be talking about a lot of money in terms of there. So it was a little bit of an anomaly, and then we also had, I think, 2 folks in the fire department that had been in the town, just a little bit of enough to do that. So we are over in reference to the PTO payout, but it is time, that is due the employee when they leave under proper circumstances. But again, the general fund is 41.6% as of July, and we are currently 6.16% under budget. And while we have the little individual departments, even with them added in, we're 6.16% under budget as of July 31st. I don't have the crystal ball for August through December, but I can tell you that we are working very hard to only spend what is necessary. And we've also started the new budget process with the goal of doing everything we can to keep that tax rate at or lower than what we have in 2022. So other than the few department line items, I'm proud to report that we are under budget, and we have been tracking under budget so far for 7 months out of the year.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Abstention, that's good. Board of Selectmen topics.
Just gonna real quick, on the roof on the senior center is excellent. Doing a good job with that.
No, I was just gonna bring up the town hall, we need to schedule a work session.
I've got a couple things. One of them is the prayer at the beginning of the meeting. We never did a formal vote on that to see who was in favor and who wasn't. It's something that we were just trying.
I thought we did do a motion on that.
I got the minutes here. Do you want me to read
Yeah.
what we did? So, there's a lot to it. I mean, I can read a little bit of the history of it too, if you want me to, and then we can talk about what we accomplished. Genro provided, and this is the minutes from June 13th, our Board of Selectmen meeting. Genro provided follow-up information to the board regarding adding prayer to the beginning of the board meetings. She spoke to attorney Jonathan Colwell from New Hampshire Municipal Association, and he said there is no RSA, but there are case laws that allow you to pray in government establishments' functions. It is established by tradition so that we would have full reign on that. There is a Supreme Court case, Grease versus Galloway, so it is not a violation of church and state. She also informed the board that if a clergy from any faith wants to come and say a prayer at one of their meetings, unless they're from an already established church in Littleton, we don't have to allow them to do so. If the board is willing, Genro already has some clergy lined up to begin with the next meeting. The board, without any votes or motions, agreed to give it a try to see how the public responds to it.
So no votes or?
I have had a couple of people that have asked me about it, and my response has been, they open the US Federal Senate and the US Congress with prayer when they open sessions. They do that on the state level. We should do it on the local level as well. I think it adds,
So,
it adds a level of civility that meetings should have, public meetings should have. I mean, if we have a discussion or a disagreement, we should be able to disagree without, calling names and all the rest of it. Unfortunately, the culture that we're living in now is such a volatile one. I think prayer has a tendency to calm the atmosphere.
So, to get on a formal vote on this, do you make a motion? Motion for,
I will make a motion that we continue the prayer before we open our select board meetings.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? No?
So it passes 2-1.
2-1.
If you have it before the meeting formally is adjourned, it's no different than having the Girl Scouts sell cookies out on the steps. It really isn't, it's just something that's going on. So you don't have to worry about it being part of the town, it's just something that's going on before the official meeting gets going.
I want to clarify that, that's it. Couple other questions. One is on overtime. Question for Chief McClellan. The overtime has been running $8,000 to $10,000 every 2 weeks with a full staff of fire, correct?
Full staff in the fact that I have 12 people that are hired on the department. I have one that is in training through October before he comes back being certified.
Okay. So I'm just comparing that to the police department, which the police department's down 2 men. They run $2,500 in overtime.
Mhm.
So is there any explanation why so much overtime?
I have the one employee that's out, that's in training as we speak. I have 2 that have been out the last couple of weeks for their paramedic training. And I have one that's out on medical leave at this point. And between that and the PTO, unfortunately, August is a tough month for us this month. And I've also had COVID that has been affecting my department throughout the summer. Basically, every couple of weeks, I end up with one more employee that catches COVID and is out for anywhere from 10 to 14 days. So those are the factors that are coming into it. And having 3 people on duty 24/7 is that's our staffing. So without those people being there, if people are off on vacation and stuff, that's where the overtime, that's the uptick that is taking place.
Nothing to do with the Franconia contract at all as far as adding to the overtime?
Nope, that's added a little bit to the overtime, but it's not the huge number that you're seeing is the 24-hour shifts that are occurring with the vacancies that I currently have. The Franconia calls, if I had to throw a number at that, I might get one person that comes back on a call back when they go down to Franconia. When something like that goes out to cover the next call that's coming in. But the numbers, the drastic amount of the money is going towards the shift coverage for the vacancies that are there.
So when we started doing this Franconia thing, we asked for a report as to what it's costing us to do those calls and how much we're getting back out of it. Can you prepare something for us for?
I can send that to you. I'll give it to Jim to give to you guys based on the, if you will, the income that's coming in for that and what the expenses are for us going down.
Okay.
I think we're somewhere in the 65 call range at
Yeah.
$300 a call.
Yeah, that was about a week or so ago. We're up higher than that, but yeah, that's the number we're at right now. Plus, and then it's the billables for what we're billing for patient transports. And that one will be just a little bit harder to track down through the billing company, just based on demographics of where the patients are and stuff and who we're picking up, but I can work on that with the billing company to get that for you.
That one's gonna be real difficult, try to break it down by patient, so
Yeah, I don't need it by patient.
yeah,
but-
not by patient.
No,
Yeah,
we
okay.
just need it by, when you go to Franconia and you call in two guys to cover the station, it's gotta be added into what the call costs.
Yeah, I can break that out as to what the callback is and stuff. The callback numbers are very low on that. But I can break that down for you. That's not a problem.
Okay. Good? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right, just add
Yeah.
a point. Since I've worked with you, I know that this is a serious issue with you. I'm going to discuss this every 2 weeks, and I don't like any line item to be over budget, but just to put it in context, the fire department has multiple line items, and this particular line item for overtime, you are absolutely right, is over budget by 6.70%. But the overall department is 52.04% under budget. And so even with that overtime being over, the department is actually 10.88% to the good of being over budget. Not, excuse me, under budget.
Yeah.
Under budget. So I know throughout any budget, we can look at a line item, and we should. We need to be aware when a line item is off. But sometimes in looking at a budget, it is still the bottom line number. And so the department itself actually, in going through the report, is probably doing one of the best on the department level of being under budget overall. But that line item, you're accurate. It is under, but not under enough that it's offsetting the department's budget.
The overall.
Yeah, yeah. I just thought that maybe just help a little bit on that. Doesn't take away the issue for
Yeah,
the overtime.
I know.
I know that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I can't help but think too, you know, I'd love to see maybe a progression as more and more people come into our town and they're driving. I mean, I don't know what happened today with that fatality with a motorcycle, but I can't help but think people are distracted. They're, you know, we have guys that are ready and willing to go to those scenes, but where is the real root issue? I see a lot of anger on the road, which does that cause accidents? You know, I would have to say so then our guys respond. You know, people are careless, not so much this time of year, but careless with their ashes, throwing them out after gathering up the hot wood stove, a fire. So it's sometimes we have to go back and say, are we really thinking clearly as a community, as a society now? I mean, I don't know, it may be part of it, but I've just seen some really crazy things on the roads. And thankfully, we have gentlemen that do respond. And I think if we went through each call, it would say, really, you know, how many times a day, you know, called out? But was it the carelessness? We have to, as a taxpayer, we pay that, but we are, I mean, we want people to come to town. I guess that's really what I'm saying, but I'm not so sure people are really cognizant of what they're doing.
I've seen in the last, since I moved back here in '99, I've seen a lot more calls for both the police and the fire since I've been back, for the previous, 20 plus years. And just in these last 3 years, 4 years, it's just, because we are a regional hub and because we do attract so many out-of-towners and out-of-staters, unfortunately, our accident ratio is going to go up because of that.
But the standards have changed also on the calls. You know, if a couple people bang fenders and bent the fenders and are out of the cars, the police went, they called the record if they needed it, or they signed some papers and away they went. Now it's the fire truck, the ambulance, police car.
Primarily because of the hazardous. If there's been an accident, they have to make sure that there's no gas or oil on the road. They have to be able to clean up any parts that are there from an accident. These guys have had way too many fatalities in the last couple of years to have to deal with in town from accidents. I mean, my heart goes out to them.
Can I just take you back one step?
Go ahead.
Vicki left me notes and
Vicky did.
I missed one, and under the licensed dogs for the town clerk, there is a warrant for unlicensed dogs, August, that needs to be approved or signed. I know you already
Yes.
voted on the dogs.
The warrant needs to be signed just so I can go back to the office tomorrow and issue those civil forfeitures.
We need to change the date on
The
that.
date
August
needs to be
31st.
changed to October 31st, though, does it not?
Did I not? Can I?
It says
Okay.
you have until August 31st to return this warrant with a statement.
Oh, we gave
We
chief
gave
Well, we gave the
permission.
chief till
October 31st.
Right, so that's
Okay.
that's the RSA date, so when he asked to have it extended, that was a vote to extend that date.
This date here.
Correct.
So this needs to
Correct,
be.
yeah, that's the RSA date that it was supposed to be back in by, but because of COVID and everything, I guess dogs were not being licensed, they were getting freebies and people
So
were
do-
taking advantage of it.
So do we need to change this August 31 to October?
I don't believe so because the minutes should have you guys motioning
Mhm.
to
Okay.
extend it to the 31st
Okay.
of October. And
I'm
does
handing
Vicki
this
get
to
this back
Andrew.
or do I get this?
Yeah, if you want, I put it in here and make a copy so we can.
I'll take it in the
have
morning,
and then I'll
yeah,
get it from you. Okay.
perfect, thank you.
Next on the agenda, public comments. Bruce?
Well, I got a couple of them, but this was one that I ran into. The town has history books, and they're on file in the library. And the fact that this is what one of them reads in here, pertaining to it. And it says in here basically that they cannot give any information out. And it's not necessarily a good way of doing it. Everybody, there's 3 old books and 1 updated one. And it's not updated in the last 10 years or more. But consequently, what they should be doing is the selectmen can in turn authorize the people in the library or anywhere else to be able to give the information out to anybody who wants to know. Because the first 3 books go back into the 1800s or more, and it tells on who lived here, who were businesses and everything like this on it, land, maps, and stuff like that on it. So people in turn go and look for these references out of it, and that part. The fact that other than different things on that are in the newer book, which is the one that Jack Kobe did, but it says right in there that they can't take any information out of it. And if you sign this thing, you have the power to do it. All it does is authorize the people to be able to go and get the information out of it and make copies of it, or take the information out of the thing too.
Do you want me to read this?
Are these out of the original or the updated?
The updated one, the other ones didn't have it in there. But the one in, it's 1986. And this is right out of the book. Go ahead and read it.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, right.
Copyright 1984 by the town of Littleton, New Hampshire. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the town of Littleton, New Hampshire, except for brief quotations in a review. So written permission would have to come through the select.
Yeah.
And we give permission to all the public.
Right, that's what you're
Which,
doing.
if we give permission to all the public, then if they go to the library personnel and say, I'd like to copy this page, they already have the authorization that they can copy that page.
This is a public disclosure. Under 91A, you go with that and you get any records you wanted to the 1700. This piece of paper, the mistake they like give you, I don't know, give it to him, it's a garbage.
This-
Anything that is a public disclosure, any place, to the town, to the library, to the chief of police, to the fire station, it's a public disclosure. Unless it's specified, that piece of paper over there doesn't mean nothing. And the right to know New Hampshire. You guys gotta go to school, man. You guys gotta learn something.
I do.
Right to know New Hampshire,
But the books,
91A, it's a public disclosure.
Yeah, Rudy, that was a publishing clause.
the books,
This
the
is
books
in-
themselves.
saying they
This is in
couldn't
the
use
book
it.
out.
Said they had to
So-
give permission, they couldn't just. make copies.
Promote. Permission of
It
promote.
was a publishing clause.
It's a public disclosure.
We need to look at this, right?
Yeah, I think what Bruce wrote is a basic generality, but I think it needs to be more specific, related specifically to these volumes. Because Rudy's right, there is a right to
Well, the
know
only thing,
law.
the only reason why I think you're wrong on it is because it's almost time to have somebody hired in the town of Littleton to upgrade from 1986 to full. And somebody in turn will be getting paid probably to go and do that on it, and whether you people put it in your budget at some point or something like that on it. But this allows anything even in the future from the point of doing it. It's very simple. It's not a major problem out of the thing on it, other than the fact that you go and if you get somebody from out of town that comes in here, or a family, or going back, or even the stuff that's all in here, it has to do with Partridge Lake, it has to do with a lot of different things that are in there. Our business out of it is in there, everybody's businesses are in it, and they can't take the information out of it, which is a good thing.
Copyright.
Yeah, it's a copyright thing, but the selectmen have the power to be able to sign the piece of paper and allow anybody to
Right.
go and look at it. And that, it's not a big deal. But you're welcome to research it if you want, I don't care.
I would like to see a little bit more detail on that before I would sign it. I think that's a little bit too general. I mean, Bruce has started on the right, he's on the right track,
Yeah.
but I'd like to see more detail, more specifics in there. Because the books do say, I have copies of 2 of the 3 books, and it does say that you cannot copy anything out of those books without the permission of the town of Littleton. Are you okay with that, Bruce?
Yeah, you can do what you want, but I mean, my recommendation is that
Yeah.
Yeah.
follow through with it and
Yeah,
do
we
it
will.
so that it affects everybody.
We will.
Do you wanna hold that,
Yeah, put that with it.
copies for us, or?
That's, I mean, you disregard the 91A law, the municipal law 91A, you disregarded that, Linda?
I'm sorry.
That's what you said. You said you disregard, you know, whatever it's written in the municipal law
The
book.
right to know
That's
law,
what you, what?
the right to know law is different from a published book, copyright law.
That's copyright.
A
It's a
book,
copyright law, it's different from the right to know
information,
law.
it talks about information.
No,
You
they're,
can't do
they're
that.
separate issues, Rudy, they're apples and oranges, they're not the same thing.
They gave it, when this book last was done, they gave the authority to the
Right,
select boards,
right.
and whoever it's in here from the point of view,
Right.
so.
We said they have classes, you know, you guys should go take a classes, because you're very ignorant, and a 91A. I know what I'm talking
Are we
about.
done on that?
Yep, done on that?
Now, the next one that I have in turn,
Book, yes, this is not,
shut him up
this
for a
is
minute.
a public.
I understand, but the books are in
Yeah.
the code.
Okay, go ahead, Bruce.
I wrote this board a letter in June 21st, and I didn't get any response. I got a response from the town manager, but not from the board. Then I went to the meeting here in July of 25, and I didn't get a response. I personally went and wrote to 2 out of the 3, because I didn't have to the third one. And I wrote and asked them to get me the reasons why they in turn were suing the Water and Light Department, or what their intentions were, et cetera, stuff like that. Both of them picked up the phone and called me. I also told them whatever it was, that I would take them all out, either one of them out to dinner too, as far as that time. So I didn't have any difficulty with that. I have a difficulty, and I think the people of Littleton have a difficulty on what you people are doing. Taking it and suing from the town to the Water and Light Department on it. And I in turn told them, no bones what I told them, I said, I'm asking you to drop the lawsuit from the town to the Water and Light on it. There's no, absolutely no reason whatsoever to be doing that on it. And consequently, I said, if you didn't do it, I'm gonna be asking for your resignations out of the thing on it, from that part, because there's no fact, the facts are that you have, between the two of you, you're now into over probably $125,000 of money that's either the ratepayers or the taxpayers. And there's a responsibility, and it can end by you people have the authority to withdraw the actual lawsuit that was filed.
Not until after the court case.
No, you can't. You can do it now. You don't have, that court cost may be ending anyway. I've actually talked with Mr. Green down here out of the thing on it, the head of the CDC out of the thing on it. From that, I've even got a call into the court system from the point of that, where Andrew in turn, and you probably have seen it, but Andrew in turn wrote a filed documentation as a complaint on December 24th of 1920, the year 20, out of the thing on it. He filed it, okay? And he filed a complaint out of the thing on it, and the court took it. They didn't take into consideration that the select board never voted to give him authorization to do that. None. Nobody had no authorization to do it, number one. Second part of it, in turn, was when it was, he in turn was not a resident of the town of Littleton. He never lived here. He was never a voter. He was not on the board whatsoever pertaining to it, other than he was doing the same thing that Jim was. And the fact that the stuff that's in the lawsuit, in turn, it's so much involved out of it that the Water and Light Department has a complete separate entity pertaining to the town of Littleton on it. And you can stop this thing by not, you're costing us money as taxpayers. And it's both of you. I've got no bones about saying, stop it. There's no, absolutely no reason why you can't go in and stop this lawsuit against the Water and Light Department. You want to talk, I'll let you talk, but there's no law that says you can't stop a lawsuit. And you have the authority to do so.
Got your email, because you actually summed it up pretty good. Is it okay if I
Yeah, go ahead.
read this? The town, Littleton Water and Light, and the state DRA are all in a holding pattern for the court to rule on the DRA's request to dismiss the Littleton Water and Light suit, summary judgment. There have been additional filings by the DRA and Littleton Water and Light with the court in regards to responses the court has requested. Once the court issues a ruling, the Littleton Board of Selectmen can then revisit this issue pending the court decision. And that could include not pursuing the case, but as of today, that is a moot point. If the court rules in favor of the DRA / town, then the case is over unless Littleton Water and Light appeals. If the court does not dismiss the case, the town could choose to withdraw, but that does not mean the DRA would withdraw its case.
Okay. Now, here's the books. I don't think any one of the three of you, until I brought them up, read these books and knew that they were even in existence as far as the town history is concerned. The history in turn goes back into the 1800s pertaining to the water and the light on it, as far as that goes, and it brings it right up to this. Do I think that you people in turn read it? No. Do I think that your town's attorney understood it or read it? No. I think that he in turn has put in 85 hours at the cost of $17,000, and I don't think that you know what the hell he's got, or nor do we. And he hasn't done anything pertaining to it as far as that part. And I'm telling you, you have the ability to stop this thing and allow this to continue, and you can in turn read the history that's in here pertaining to the Water and Light Department, now the thing on it. And two of the things that you both tried to tell me was that the Water and Light Department in turn almost went belly up. They did for a reason out of the thing on it, and you didn't know, okay? The Water and Light Department built a new tower on top of Mount Eustis to take care of and it's right in the history of the thing, and they did it to take care of Morrison Hill and Lotta Rock Dairy. They had no water pressure. That was a big part of what it was. Then they turned around and the land that was up there was actually given by the Alakla family out of it to the Water and Light, to the town for the usage of getting it. And it's over the hill so that they could get the water to go down and the backside, and it went to the industrial park, and from the industrial park it went down and across into feeding those other big buildings that are down below it. Now, we had a problem in Littleton. We had Saranac Glove was out of business, and it was done by a bank. They put the guy that lent them the money from the bank, put his brother-in-law in here to screw the company out of the thing on it and put it in their own pocket. That's a truthful thing. Then you end up with two shoe factories that closed, 800 people out of work. The industrial park, the people that were on the industrial park, myself included, we went to the Water and Light Department to get them to agree that they would be part of the thing to initiate to build the industrial park out of the thing on it. It wasn't a case of going broke. And the fact is, the way that this is set up out of the thing on it, any money that comes back, as far as that part of it's concerned, and they really needed the money, they have to come back and apply to the community out of it as far as monies are concerned. They did it once. And the one time that they did, they returned and they said, no, if you want additional money, you increase the rates. That's what they did on it. There's no feasibility on the basis of what you're talking about. You really don't know. Frankly, I don't think either one of you know. And I know the fact that you have cost this community a tremendous amount of money on it. And I'm telling you, you're doing it, still doing it wrong if you do not go and try to stop this lawsuit against the within the town is suing them. They in turn work as an independent company. They have their own government tax rules pertaining to it. They end up having to have their own insurance, life insurance, health insurance. It's completely independently operated from the point of what it is. And there's a piece of paper in here that shows that it was a requirement in 1943 that the legislature in turn acted that says the responsibility for all the money in turn is the responsibility of the three commissioners that appoint it. And by the way, at the present time, the three commissioners all graduated from Littleton High School too. So that is, as far as I'm concerned, it's a plus on the thing on it. But that article in turn said, then it went on further and it said that in 1949, the town of Littleton elected to try to go from a management company to a town to a town manager form of government. And when they did, they hired a guy by the name of Sid Brazell. They ran him out of town because he was over $150,000 for his budget was concerned when they got done. But in the meantime, on it, there was a vote and it says it right in the town history on the thing on it too, that was done in June, I think it was June 25th of 1949. And it said, yes, you can go and have a town manager form of government. But the town manager form of government has nothing to do with the water and light department on it. And it's history right here. I got the paper if you want to see it on what it is. But as far as I'm concerned, you're doing it, you both are still doing it wrong. You've allowed it to go and sue the water and light department out of the thing on it, and it's costing us over $100,000, and it's on both of you people problem out of it. So I'm telling you, go drop the lawsuit out of the thing, and if you don't do it, the people in town are gonna railroad you people out of here from that part, because you're not correct.
You know, we're being advised that we.
You're
can't-
being advised by who?
By our attorney.
By your attorney. And he's billing us, and he in turn he's got 85 hours in here, and he doesn't tell anybody else in the town what he's doing on it whatsoever. You've got a problem. He's got a problem. The last time we hired that guy, he was down in Woodsville at a meeting. He didn't even have the dates right on it from that part. So he's possibly, why don't you look at it and said, get rid of him and hire somebody else on the thing on it, if you think that's it. If you're sticking with that, because it's wrong.
So we need to throw more money at it, you see.
You know, you need to throw him out. Stop it. And we'll try to get the thing resolved with the CDC out of the thing on it by sending him copies of the information that's in this town records and report pertaining to it, and allowing them to turn around, and they can probably drop the suit pertaining to it as well. Because they had no business drawing it, because they don't have any information, and this attorney doesn't supply them with anything on it. They don't even know that this was in the town history.
Can I
Right?
We have a old Littleton saying that has stuck by us, I'll say religiously, throughout the years, and it's never failed. And it's, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's right.
And I haven't had anything to do with this, but I'll tell you right now, getting the attorneys involved is probably the worst thing that you could do. And I agree, there's a lot of information that hasn't there. You hire attorneys. Attorneys only use what is provided to them, and it goes back and forth, and they drag it out as long as possible. Sorry, Brian. And it's just going to keep generating revenue, and they're going to expedite as long as possible. What you don't want to happen, and you don't know what's going to happen, is when it goes in front of a judge and the courts make a decision that could cripple the town. You don't know what that's going to be. You do not want that to happen.
you're getting a big dividend
And
out of it with low rates out of it and doing it, and you got one of the lowest rates in the state of New Hampshire.
I've seen this happen throughout other communities in New Hampshire over the years. I primarily deal with recreation, but people think they're doing a good thing, they get the courts involved, and all of a sudden, whole communities are shut down because of a legal ruling, where all it took was people just getting together and talking, figuring things out beforehand. Having a legal ruling, this all besides the information, having a legal ruling could make us have the same electrical rates as the rest of the state. And when that happens, we're dead in the water. So be prepared and be very, very cautious, because like I said, it's the legal ruling you gotta be afraid of. Yeah, there's money aside, it's not good spending the money. A legal ruling is not good.
So, with history on this thing, it all got dropped in our laps, and by the time that happened, it was in the court systems.
You weren't there, she was. She was there when it initially started with Andrew Gorsuch out of it, and it was a case of wanting to, and they switched and put Sweet on the board out of it, which was the worst thing they could have done. He had a history of every time it turned around, no matter what Sweet did, he wanted to go to an attorney. He got to the Water and Light Department out of it, and they took and got rid of, what's his name, Means Hill out of it. And he did a good job for a lot of years out of the thing on it as an individual out of it. And suddenly, he found by reading some of the stuff that he could do it. Terry told me that she went to him, and he refused to have a meeting with him out of the thing on it as well. That still doesn't make any difference. It's him that was creating the problem out of it as far as that goes. He's now passed away. The fact is, stop the lawsuit. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's costing us money, and if it comes out wrong out of the thing on it, it's gonna cost us in this community a tremendous amount of money. Stop it. You have the power to do that. Don't go listening to this attorney. He's giving you bad advice, period. And you take those books and read them, both of them.
We'll look into it. Brian?
Speaking as a former attorney, and I have to fully disclose, as of May 31st, I am fully retired, resigned, whatever you want to say. I'm no longer a lawyer. I guess I would describe myself as a recovering attorney. So my comments here are not legal opinions, they're personal opinions, so I just want to make it clear about that. Robert wrote a rather comprehensive article that basically showed both sides of where the status of the case was. Now, Carrie, you read something, and again, I have 15% hearing loss in each year. My understanding, and Robert piqued my interest so much, I went down to Grafton County and looked at it, the same stuff, and he did a very fair job in reporting what the document showed. But Carrie, did you say that what was pending was a motion by the Water and Light? My understanding from reading the paperwork was that DRA filed what's called a motion for summary judgment, and then Water and Light responded, answered, and then filed a cross motion. Is that what your understanding is?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if the DRA wins their motion for summary judgment, the case is over, okay? There's no second chance or bite at the apple for that. I mean, theoretically, it could be appealed to the Supreme Court and go through there. But if a motion for summary judgment means you win. So if DRA wins, the case is over, you don't have the opportunity to revisit the issue and to make a change. Now, Robert's reporting on that, and which I also looked at the pleadings, the town is facing that if DRA wins, we could lose because they filed, and I don't know if do you have a copy of the Water and Light's response?
which time?
This, the latest one on the motion for summary judgment.
That was in Robert's article?
Well, parts of
Parts.
it, he didn't put the whole thing in there, he would have it taken a whole newspaper.
Yeah.
Do you, as selectmen, have a copy of, or the town manager?
I have a copy of that in my files.
Okay, because included in that was an expert filing who basically was, from what I read, has been working for the Water and Light for the longest time, that talked about the potential negative consequences of the lawsuit. And anytime you get in a lawsuit, and I'm talking generically, there's the doctrine of unintended consequences. And in reading the lawsuit and the response from the Water and Light along with their expert opinions, we're in a position of where DRA wins, Water and Light goes out of business because their business model will be destroyed, it'll be eliminated, and then we're gonna be subject to being personally purchased by Eversource. My son lives in Hooksett. His electric bill right now is around $700
A month.
a month. Eversource is going up to 23 cents residential, and I believe Littleton Water Light, correct me if I'm wrong, Linda, is around 12 cents. So the potential for our electric bills doubling if we end up having to go out of business because the business model is destroyed through this lawsuit. And they made a compelling case from what I read. And so I guess I'm saying the doctrine of unintended consequences, if the two of you, I know Linda's out of it, I think she made the appropriate decision, you can't wear two hats and have one foot in each camp, and she's done the right thing. But if the two of you are prepared to have that happen, where the business model gets destroyed, it no longer works, and it happened in Bethany, and it's happened all over New Hampshire through the years, where locally owned electric companies go out of business. And then they are then taken over by co-op, electric source, or anything. So if you two are prepared to face that as a consequence, to me, that's a risk in a bridge too far. So I don't know about Bruce's research, but I think you should take a long, hard look about the unintended consequences of what could happen to the ratepayers.
So we've been told on this that it's out of our hands now
It's not.
until the courts make a decision.
Baloney. That's listening to that goddamn guy that
So-
you're paying down there.
Okay. So what's your take on that?
Well, the client is in charge. Nobody tells the client, and the client will have to file a motion, and you'll talk with your counsel would be.
Which is the DRA, they're the ones that file.
No,
No. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong,
read that.
The town
Read it, don't
sued-
read, but read the whole thing to the public.
the town sued the Water and Light Department, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, at the request of DRA, because DRA didn't want to do it directly. So DRA got the town to sue Water and Light, and then once the town sued Water and Light, DRA came in as an intervener, and then since then, my understanding, again, correct me if I'm wrong, they've been running the show. They've been filing, because they filed a motion for summary judgment. The town didn't file a motion for summary judgment. The DRA did. According to the pleadings, that's what happened, and that's where we are now. Now, my understanding is the last pleading that had to go in was sometime early this week, where there's another response from the Water and Light Department. I have no idea what the heck that's gonna be. But the two of you gotta be, are you prepared to live with the consequences over what this fight is about for us to lose Water and Light Department? So I guess, I mean, are you both prepared for that to happen?
Yeah.
Read that article right there. This was this was an article in turn that was done by the legislature in 1943. Go ahead, Terry, read it to the public. It's very difficult.
I would like to explain something first, and I feel like I have shared this over and over and over and over again. I was in that initial meeting with the DRA and their council. I was in there. I was in there with Andrew and our council. I sat there, I heard the DRA say, Littleton Water and Light is a department of the town. They even had it on the trucks, they had it on their website, they are the department of the town.
The word was department, didn't have any bearing on the
Let me,
ownership.
please,
of it.
Bruce, let me finish, please.
Yeah,
Because I just want to be able to share, and Brian graciously said if he was incorrect to let him know. And I know it's been 3 years, however long it's been. So I sat in that meeting, and the representative of the DRA said, we are no longer going to turn a blind eye. We've got a new commissioner, and she's going to hold you, pointing at me, the town, accountable for the Littleton Water and Light. Now, this was all new to me. And then I later found out a bunch more things as far as the past administration poking the bear and wanting to get the money or whatever they were doing. But now we were faced with this. I remember looking right in the eyes of the guy that represented the DRA, and I said, we're a small town. And I said, please give us an opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with the commissioners, with the Water and Light. None of us want to push for this. And he said, if you don't, well, in fact, I asked him too, I said, you guys go after the Water and Light. We don't want to. It's a well-oiled machine, we've got great rates, we love what they're doing. So then we found out that there were 3 things that they were looking for. One, monthly, the profit and loss, or the financials had to be presented to the town every month. They weren't.
Have those been sent to you?
They have now. So that was good. And one of the reasons why they weren't being sent is because they were upset with the past administration. So they stopped sending the monthly financials. Not good, but they did. So we got that corrected. That was one thing. Like I said, there were 3 things that they were extremely adamant on. That was the first one. How come they're not submitting their monthly statements? Well, then they started to. Second thing was, how come they're not submitting an annual budget? They hadn't. All they had to do was, at that point, DRA would have been happy, just submit a budget. That's all. That's what town departments have to do. And they did. That year they did. So that was good. So now we're 2 out of 3, which is perfect. So the third one, which seems to be creating the most frustration and angst, is that if the Littleton Water and Light has a surplus, now that itself is subjective, right? What do you mean by surplus? So the guy from the DRA said, well, for example, if they have $100,000 surplus, they are to turn it over to the town.
read that piece of paper that I just put in front of you. It quotes it right in there.
So they were to turn it over to the town, and I said, well, they do like kind things, so they put up the Christmas lights, they do a lot that we would consider equal value. And then his response was, well, who determines that value? So
read that article right there to your people, right now in front of you. That tells you right in there that the commissioners are in charge of all reserves. It says it right there, and it was approved by the legislature in 1943. So you're not...
Let her finish her story.
Yeah, she can finish her story, but the story isn't gonna do us any good if you're not doing it and willing to change your ways out of it. So, but read that right there. So, but go ahead and finish.
So that seems to have been the sticking point, was that they said we already do like kind things for the town. We were okay with that. We know they do. I mean, and I don't think people realize, and I appreciate, you know, when you're in the arena, nobody understands the sweat, the dust, the angst of being in that arena. When you're on the outside of the arena, it's easy to say, it's easy to cast opinion, judgment, whatever you want to call it. But when you're in the arena, fighting, this causes us as much heartburn as anybody. So I begged and pleaded to allow them to give us time to sit down with the commissioners at Littleton Water and Light, and I was told, literally, I was told, no.
Did you get it in writing? This is the problem, and I'm telling you, dealing with anything that we have in this state, you always get it in writing. They're gonna tell you.
And I was told no. I was told no. Now, I could have asked for an affidavit of whatever.
Well, and the reason I bring this up is, and I'm sorry, since Ray Burton has passed, we're all seeing it. The southern part of the state wants the northern part gone. They're gonna take everything and anything we possibly can.
So anyways, I don't wanna go down rabbit
I
holes,
know,
okay?
but
So let's, and you guys have asked, you know, what's, and I feel like ad nauseum going over this over and over and over again. And now we're at a position where we could have stopped this. We could have corrected this. 3 years ago. 3 years ago it could have been corrected with just communication. And then even if we'd gotten to the point where they said, well, we really don't think that putting up the Christmas lights is, you're saying it's worth 30,000, we only think it's, well, we think it's worth 50,000. I think we could have hammered all of that out. Besides, that wasn't our angst anyways. That was the DRA's angst. So that's, you know, I appreciate you guys coming here. Bruce, I appreciate all the reading that you want us to do. I've done a lot of history, I've had to, in order to even get to this point. So I understand that. And if we could go back in time, I don't know what we would have done back in time, other than I would have begged, even more so. Finally, after the commissioners realized how serious the DRA was, I got a phone call from Skylar, and he said, would you be willing to talk? Love to. I said, you pick the place, you pick the time, I will just sit there and take notes. And that's exactly what I did. We went up to the Littleton Water and Light conference room. It was just he and I took note after note. In fact, Jim's got the summary of those notes. And note after note, and I said, all right, I'm gonna send them to you, because I wanna make sure that I've captured exactly what you're sharing with me, exactly. And he said, I did.
You didn't have the other commissioners there?
No.
You didn't have any other commissioners there? Then you got a problem out of it. Now read what I'm telling you to read right there to the public here.
Gary, can I just say a couple quick things? Number one, the capital reserves, my understanding is they get to set the reserves similar to what is authority that the town has certain money that they can put in reserves. They have the same rights that the town does.
Absolutely.
That by itself is not.
Right.
And you basically stated that you urged them, if they had a problem with the water and light, to sue the water and light.
Yeah.
Well, DRA, for political reasons, didn't want to do that.
Right.
So they've been using the town to pursue their agenda. And their interpretation of the law has not been settled by anybody. That's, I guess, why you're in court, obviously. So their position that they took, which they're entitled to their opinion, but the idea that we're expending our money to facilitate their lawsuit, if they want to sue the water and light, there's nothing that you as selectmen or us as citizens can do about it. But the idea that they're using you guys to sue the water and light because they have a particular interpretation of the law that's inconsistent with the history of the water and light department. What was wrong with water and light department? As far as I know, it wasn't operating any different than it had been for years. There wasn't anything new about that, about how they set their rates, they did their thing, and they billed, and they didn't go to the town for taxes, and they did all those things that they did. So they basically were just cruising along like they usually do. Water, DRA seemed to have an issue. So, and you just said it, Carrie, that you suggested to them that if they got a problem, they sue them.
But they wouldn't.
I know.
You guys did.
No.
You guys did the suing, the two of you.
So as it was explained, well, it's not fair to put Roger in that, he wasn't there, Bruce. So to kind of summarize that too, what we were told is that if Littleton Water and Light had a surplus, and they were just using it as an example, if they had a surplus of $100,000 and they did not give it to the town, that they would treat it, our tax base, how the DRA figures, how our taxes are figured out, they would treat it as if we got it anyways. So now that was kind of an arbitrary number. Now what I'm blown away with, I guess, is how previous to us having that meeting at the town office, all of the letters and the poking that went on ahead of time. I don't know how many calls went down to Concord or to the DRA. I know it was the past administration, and I know that they did tell the DRA that Littleton Water and Light had a lot of money, and they weren't willing to give, and I guess they made up some number, like 3 million, 8 million.
That was reported in Robert's article.
Right.
And read that article right there.
That wasn't the truth. So, and as we were trying to share that with them, at that point, we didn't have we had nothing against Littleton Water and Light, nothing. So then the DRA is saying, well, if you don't handle this, we will treat it as if you are already getting that money. So now we're in a triple whammy. Our rates go up, the taxes go up, and so I'm thinking, well, no, we as a board do not want to go after the Water and Light Department. It's a well-oiled machine, and it was kind of half cheek, is that the right term? Tongue in cheek. When I said, you want to go after them, you go after them. And they said, we can't go after them.
Were there anybody else in the room besides you? When you said that to them, was there anybody else in the room?
Well, yeah,
Who?
yeah.
From the town?
Yeah,
Who?
Andrew.
Andrew was the only one. Now, the CDC have got a problem right at the present time because the head of it's a guy by the name of Green. He used to do the appraisals of the town of Littleton. But Andrew is also now working for the state of New Hampshire.
No longer.
No more.
Did they fire him?
Yeah.
No, they fired him from
Grafton.
Grafton County.
Now he's in charge of all of
Now he
that.
went to work for the state, so there's a conflict of interest no different than when Linda did it. And the fact is they should in turn be doing that.
No, Bruce, we can't be talking about, and I'm talking about past administration, current situation that's not right.
That's an argument that you have an attorney that can go in and apply and say that these people in turn that are trying to do it in here have got a conflict of interest because Andrew was the one that filed the complaint. And you can do that.
DRA has enforcement mechanisms that they use all the time. The idea that they could not pick an enforcement mechanism to pursue their dispute with the Littleton Water and Light Department, whatever they told you, in my opinion, not legal, in my opinion, they pursue enforcement mechanisms all the time. The idea that they couldn't go after the Water and Light Department, they didn't, in my opinion again, did not want to take the political heat of suing the Water and Light Department. They wanted you guys to take the political heat.
So Brian, if you, so we've got a few departments in town. We've got the fire department, the police department, Littleton Water and Light Department, Parks and Rec Department, transfer station.
You don't have the,
So those are all-
you're just saying,
those-
you
those-
don't have you just coming up and saying that the Water and Light is a department, and that's not true. You're admitting it, you've got a problem out of the thing, you just said it.
So those are all departments there. The DRA, I mean, can you imagine them going after the fire department for surplus? That just doesn't even make sense because it's a department of the town. So we as a board of selectmen have a responsibility to manage. You know, the only weird difference is Jim, the town manager, it's hands off. So we as a board of selectmen appoint the commissioners, which again is kind of a weird thing, but they are a town department. Now they run it.
No, they're not. You just keep saying it. And you're the problem, because you keep saying it. They're not a department, they're a separate company out of the thing on it. And they file that way, they do business that way out of the thing on it, and who in turn signed for the lawsuit is Carrie. And the other one in turn that keeps doing it out of the thing on it is you. And as long as you continue to do this and continue to follow through with it, you got a problem.
I got a lot of problems.
Well, I don't care, I don't care, this is a very important problem out of it on behalf of our community.
You have a question?
Yeah, I was just curious, when you met with the DRA representative, was it James Jerry or someone else?
And he's since gone.
Oh, yes.
It's a Mr. Green that's down there now.
And it was their council was Wolf, I believe, if my memory serves me
Yes.
correctly.
Bernie Wolf? Not Bernie Wolf.
Diane, did you have a question?
Well, I mean, I'm going back to what Bruce has said about water and light not being a department, so I haven't read all the information and I'm not making a statement on that. But at the time, the budget committee wasn't really hearing this, but we kind of chatted back and forth and said, well, there's so many other departments in Littleton that retain their fee structures and surplus, I guess you would call it, and why wouldn't Littleton Water and Light be able to do that? There's revolving funds and there's all of these different ways of doing it. So we were always wondering why that wasn't pursued as an option.
Carrie's got the paper right in front of her, but she hasn't read it to you. But read it to them so you'll understand. Read that paper.
But, so anyways, that was one of the other things that we were talking about. You know, yes, they did at the time submit a budget. I can't remember the second one that you were talking about, but the
It's
third.
the monthly profit and loss or
monthly,
monthly
that would go to the
financials.
But we also said for the surplus, it would be so easily handled if it was just set up in that revolving fund, but I don't think Littleton Water and Light wanted that, and you're right, it's probably because of the definition of department.
She's got it right here. I just told her, I just put it up there and asked her to read it to you. Read it to the public right now.
The Littleton Water and Light Department is different than the Highway Department, because it was created by enabling legislation. And in the legislation, it says the commissioners shall, the selectmen shall appoint the commissioners, and then the commissioners shall operate the Water and Light Department. And it had its own enabling legislation, I think, from 1903, and there's been half a dozen different changes, and I think a lot of the mumbo jumbo of the lawsuit gives a rehashing of all that stuff, basically. But there's probably been half a dozen different times where they've made enabling legislation and changes along that line. And the Water and Light Department, their business model that they've been pursuing, there's nothing new about that. That's what they've been doing right along. And most of us are happy. I mean, you get an example, just right now, they're at 12 cents for residential. If Eversource took over, they're at 23. And that's what my son is facing in Hooksett. So this isn't theoretical, this is serious for the long-time health. I mean, the single greatest economic development tool we have in Littleton is the Water and Light Department. Our electric rates makes us more competitive than other small towns. It's not, nobody moves here just for the electric rates, but by golly, it helps us get businesses to come and stay. And it also helps all of them stay. Now, the DRA, for whatever reason, they didn't pursue it, you know, up until just now. Now, why they got to change, they got their knickers in a twist about something whatsoever, I can't tell you that. But all of a sudden, there was a change. Water and Light didn't change. Board of Selectmen and their relationship with the Water and Light didn't change. The DRA is the one who changed. And then they forced you guys to bring a lawsuit against the Water and Light Department to give them political cover, in my opinion. And then they jumped in as an intervener, and then they've been running the lawsuit ever since then. So you're going to have, the problem is the doctrine of the unintended consequence. And anytime you open up a lawsuit, what you get out of it many times isn't what you anticipated. And the Water and Light is too valuable for us.
Just one last thing. Their business model is really important to the success of Littleton. Just the flexibility of being able to turn on a dime for something that they have to buy, power that they have to buy, or get a better rate here, or, you know, when you go through the regular town meeting structure, you can't do that. And so their model is very important, but we were trying to make suggestions at one time, like how can we meet halfway here, you know, and so that's why we were suggesting some of the revolving funds and structure where they are in charge of their own monies. But their business model, being able to flexibility as well, is equally as important.
And you read the piece of paper that I gave to Carrie, and you'll find out that the legislature says in here that the commissioners in turn are in charge of completing, having the whole of the money whatsoever. It says it right in that thing that I gave you.
I will have Carrie, take a copy of that and
No,
I'll
you can
stop
give it
by.
to me, because that's my
Well,
paper, so.
Well, anyway, well,
Yeah.
I'll get a copy of
Yeah.
it, so.
I think it's, I could be wrong, but I think it's very similar to like how Parks and Rec was set up, and I'm just speaking as a prior commissioner. We were elected officials, the budget was approved by the town, the funds were given to the commissioners. If we had a surplus, yes, it went into a revolving fund, or whatever line item, whatever we needed to put it there. But we ran on our own, and for, I'll say up until a short time ago, it was extremely successful, even with the budget. And basically it was kept very tight, no different than most people run their households. And again, I think it's, and again, it was set up the way the laws of the state set up for Parks and Rec, and that's how it was filed, so.
But Andrew wrote a letter to the state and wanted to know if he had the authority to take over the Parks Department out of it. That's on record, you can find it in your records in here as far as that goes. He intervened wanting to do it, and there was no reason to. We've had, this community has run perfect when we had the commissioners running that department as well out of the thing on. And it's not even running that great now at the present time of what you have in there on it too.
So that all
Okay.
came about, can I just
Right.
clarify that? That all came about because we are the only town in the state of New Hampshire that sets up our Parks and Rec Commission this way. And there is a law, there's a statute, there's an RSA that states that they're not to be elected, they're to be appointed. So Littleton is the only town in the state of New Hampshire.
No, not Park and Rec, you mean Water and Light.
No Parks and Rec.
No, they're elected.
Or elected, part of it, yeah.
But they're,
In Littleton.
and-
Yes, but
and
it's legal.
Littleton is the only town
Right,
in New
but it's
Hampshire that
legal.
has that exclusion.
Right, but it's legal,
Well, because of legislation way back when.
right.
And
So
that
that's,
came out of, Carrie, when we used to have a village district,
Mhm.
and they had the town, and when Moore Dam was going online, and they were gonna pay 2/3 of our bill, we wanted to make sure that they paid 2/3 of everything, not just 2/3
right,
of the town, and that the district didn't get the benefit of that.
right. No,
So,
I'm-
and what happened was the parks, what do you do with it? Because it was something that was left over from the village commissioners, and they created in 1955 or 54, they created the enabling legislation for the way the Rec and Parks is set up now.
So I guess I bring that up because it's another yet weird part of our town. That's, it is a quirk. So then, and just to let you know too, we're creatively trying to figure this out. And I was told not that long ago that maybe Water and Light could pay property taxes on the buildings. They pay taxes to Bethlehem, but Littleton owns the buildings. So that's
No,
kind
they
of,
don't, they
That's
only
kind of
own the land.
it's kind of a weird thing for them to be buying or paying property tax on a building that the town of Littleton already owns. So that kind of wouldn't make sense at all.
Again, you're losing it because they are an independently owned company out of it, and you keep elaborating it back as if the town in turn owns them. Well, the town is a stockholder out of the thing. It would be like if they ran out of money out of it, the town is gonna be asked to come in and sign a note so that they could buy a car out of it, from that end of it. The only effect that this has on anything to do with the town of Littleton is bonding. You actually have a bond, and when you come back and if you needed a bond for a school or anything else, the Water and Light Department could be infected as far as that part is concerned, but that's the only thing. Again, I wish you would read that thing that's right here in public.
Bruce, it's a horrible copy.
It's the only one that the Water and Light has, and it's not easy to read.
No, but if we could clean it up some, I'd be happy to, but it's a horrible copy.
I can't deny it, I had a hell of a time to read it myself, but consequently, it reads right in there on the thing on it, that the Water and Light Commissioners in turn have the full control of the assets and the money that's in here, that's what it says.
There's no decision that's gonna be made on this right now. My suggestion is, you work on this urgently quick, and if you need to hold an emergency meeting session or whatever to can it, get it done and get it over with quick. Because every day this goes by, all it's gonna take is them getting notified down there, and they're gonna put a rush on it, and it's gonna get pushed through.
Well, going with that, we can't make a decision tonight. I came here tonight to talk about the budget committee, so. So if I could have like a couple of minutes
Yeah,
on that.
So,
So, as you know, we're approaching that season, and, as you have seen, I'll come over here when Bruce, as you have seen, the timeline on that, we will not see the proposed budget until mid-October through December. But I would like to invite the, select board to meet with us sometime in mid-September if possible, just so we can maybe approach what your focus is, and hopefully, I think it's your budget, and we review your budget. I would like to see a cap or a number. It's not our budget, we don't necessarily have to decide, but I think each board has approached it differently with different membership and different select board members, and they've all approached it. And sometimes the board has just handed it to us and said, here, you do it. And we're going, well, wait a minute, we aren't the ones that make the budget. But, and then we have so many things on the table, it's really hard at the very end to say, no, this is a good idea, but not this year. So we would like you to actually come up with whatever number you're approaching. Look at the revenues, look at if the town is growing, the tax base is growing, if there are any things that we're gonna be facing that we really need to know about. Take all that into consideration and come back to the budget committee and say, this is where we're gonna start. And we would really appreciate that fact. So if we could sit down sometime in mid-September with you to talk about the things, talk about the focus, and you may not have that number at that time, but by the time we have our first meeting in October, we would have that number to work with. So that is
absolutely.
just me asking you for that favor. It's very difficult for us. We think most of the projects that are brought forward are great projects, but we can't do them all in 1 year sometimes. So we would like you to help guide us with that, those numbers.
Your budget committee meets what, every Thursday beginning in October or beginning in December?
Well, I think it's gonna be.
I mean, besides the meeting that we have.
Oh, I think we're gonna start earlier, so.
We're required to get the budget to you by the 15th of
Right.
October, and between the 15th and the 20th to the.
To that, yeah. And what we might be working on is gathering other information to get a better view of what's going on in town. We have the capital improvement plan. Should we be looking at that? So we would really like to have some of that discussion, that first meeting that we had. The other thing is, there are a lot of agencies that have petitions. And in the last couple of years, we have not reviewed any of that information or the request. One was because of COVID, we just kind of let it go for that year. But do we need to continue to do that? What the committee has decided in the past is that they don't like to say, if we don't vote, it's a no. It's a no on the ballot. And we don't necessarily want to say no. We don't want the community to think that we're literally saying no to some of these agencies. So we have reviewed it, but in the last couple of years, we haven't. So we would have to work with people in the town office to get the contact information and maybe start with some of that information prior, so we have the time to really devote from mid-October to, because it's lengthy sometimes. Yeah.
Just on some of those, if they do it by petition, we have no say on that. If they get 25 registered voters
Yeah.
and they put
Right.
something on, so those are completely separate outside of our approval, are they not?
I
Correct.
think we have to vote on them, otherwise it says no. And, so we've kind of gone back and forth. but-
What I meant was, even if we said no, we didn't support that, if they have the 25
Right,
signatures.
they can still place it on the ballot, but I think we want to be, in sync with what the select board would like to do on that. Because I don't know, I think in the past you have voted on them and sometimes you haven't voted on them. We would just like to be in sync with you on that. And if we are going to vote on them, we would like to hear from the agencies. So, and we were hoping to get that done prior to when we start hearing the department.
Last year, that was a problem, we didn't hear from a lot, we
Yes.
just wanted the money.
Yes, we just ran out of time on some of the things too, so.
So we still have to put them on the ballot.
Yes.
Yeah,
Get
you
the
still do,
signatures.
but if you're gonna say yes or no, because the state requires some kind of response, you know,
And I think their deadline is in January, and we finish up the budget committee
Yeah.
in December, so some of those can come in.
like, yeah. We could still hear it, but I mean, still. But anyhow, we just wanna be in sync with it.
Those petition articles, are we required?
No, can I
To
just
make a
interject
judgment.
something on that? Back,
I'm asking you, Jim. Are,
I think we
are required to
had to vote on them.
no.
support or not
Well, I mean, we don't
support?
have to vote on them, but if we don't vote, it shows up as a no.
Well,
No,
hang on a
That's
second,
what I was gonna do.
The town,
hang on a second, we got, go ahead.
So if a petition article comes in from, say, Joe Shelter out there, they want $35,000. Do we have, as a select board or as the budget committee, if they do the petition article with however many signatures they need, it's all legally required, done.
Yeah.
It's on the ballot. If we do not get an opportunity to review it, or they do not come before the budget committee or the select board to explain or request or whatever, do we have to say, select board 303, that we don't support it because we never had?
We've done it before because we didn't have the information.
Okay, and the same thing with the budget committee, but do we have to put that at the end of the article on the ballot?
the budget committee can't. Your town's attorney in the last statement.
Bruce, excuse me, I am asking the town manager
Yeah.
and Roger and Carrie, please. Thank you.
We've done it in the past because we didn't get enough information to be able to make a judgment.
The voters will look at, our vote, same with budget committee. So if they see budget committee, in favor, 7-0,
Right.
and then the board of selectmen, 3 in favor to nothing, that does have a lot of influence
Right.
on the
But do we
voters.
legally have to put that line on the warrant article because it's a petition article?
No.
We, in the past, we've
No?
just shared it at the deliberative session,
Okay.
that the reason why it's showing 0 to 3 is because we didn't have enough information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could we find out, can we validate whether or not we have to
Yeah.
put that on
Put
the
that on there.
ballot, period?
You don't.
So, I don't know, Bruce.
Well, I'm telling you that in the last meeting that I went to with this town's attorney, he came right out and told the judge that the budget committee in the town of Littleton has absolutely no authority on it, and he was the one that made the statement out of it. He's the town's attorney, and he said the fact that you shouldn't even have those things on there.
Well, the thing is, the voters voted to have us put
It's a
our.
volunteer thing from the point of that, but he's making it as a commitment.
He said they're an advisory board.
We are,
Right.
but we have had to put it on here, so I just want him to,
Just to let you know,
Right.
this same question did come up, I'm gonna say 6 or 8 years ago. And at the time, the board, and I'm gonna say it probably went for 3 or 4 years, anything that was a petition warrant article, there was nothing. The board did not say in favor or against it, it was just,
That verbiage
I'll
is
say
not
left
on.
blank. And that's all petitioned, whether it was Parks and Rec had something, whether it was some shelter or whatever, they were all neutral. And it came from something from the DRA, because at the time, there was a question, I don't know where it came from. And then, I don't know if it started
So
getting
the
back
idea
in
of
or
the
whatever.
petition is their way to get something on if the town
Correct.
wouldn't budget.
Or if someone else wants it, right? If-
Well, right, a good
I would
example
just
is
like
like
it
gazebo.
verified.
Um,
I think it's
they
a great
didn't
thing
give us
that
a-
when we do it, the way we do it.
Yeah, I just want it verified, and I wanna be in sync with them, so
I think Diane
if,
is right.
you know, if we have to do it, then we need to figure out our approach. If we don't have to do it for the petition warrant articles, that's
Okay.
I
okay.
think you could put it out there
Good.
as one ballot, but it could go on like an informational.
Any other comments? Rudy?
Supper time.
Oh, yeah. Between the budget committee, you know, and the selectmen and the town, I think they got some kind of misunderstood the way I've been seeing. I've been, go a lot of meeting on the budget committee, and also, I've been following a lot of meetings over here. Other people, they supposed to agree, the voters.
Okay, thank you.
Out of the voters, they supposed to agree on everything that you guys talk about inside the budget committee, when they don't even know what the hell you're talking about, the budgeting. You talk about whatever the selectmen, whatever the town will give you, that's what you talk about, right? Right?
I
Yeah,
think
right?
so, yeah.
But in the other hand, did you put on the table what's going on right now with inflation, with the people that got no money? Do you know what's going on with the people that they can't, you know, they can't find a job or something like that? No. You guys in the budget committee, you just analyze everything that the three guys that they tell you. And believe me, there's three guys that they don't know much.
Can I
Can
answer
you-
that?
Sure.
That was, so this is what I grew up with, so to speak, when I was on the school board. And we had 3 other selectmen, and we would all meet, just a minute, the select board, the school board, and the budget committee. We would all meet, but I was on the budget, I was on the school board at the time. And the select board would say, okay, our revenues are such and such, our tax base has grown such and such or hasn't grown. We have this to really consider about. We have a new school coming on board, whatever.
Yeah.
And we need to really think about that. I also look at whether or not there's inflation, whether or not people are employed, what is the average household income. We look at all of those things to try to get a good view of where we should be with the budget. We also know that we have to move ahead, but we also know we can't kill the taxpayer. So that is the reason, and that's the approach that I take. I try to see a holistic view of everything that is coming our way. We do not rubber stamp what they can all say, we do not rubber stamp everything that they bring forward. We ask some hard questions.
I
And
learned that about you.
we do, and, but I do want to say it is their budget. I want to be the one that is setting the total amount. I want to hear the department heads and the reasons why they're requesting what they're requesting. It's really hard. We put in a lot of time and we put in a lot of effort, and I have to say, we have a good group because they listen and they ask questions. So that's all I can say. It isn't an easy job, and we like to serve the community this way.
And you're welcome to go and sit in anytime you want.
I do
Yeah,
that.
he
I
does,
do that.
he does, yeah.
Hey, no, you're right. I agree with you what you're doing and stuff like that. In the other hand, did you see, you know, what people go through, and when they come up with something, right now, the town of Littleton, right? The town of Littleton, they be spending money very reckless about lots of stuff. You can go to the town manager, he can give you a list in everything that they spend, and you can do nothing, because what? because the budget committee is not in session anymore. You cannot stop them. Do you can stop them? No.
We cannot stop them. The advisory committee basically was set up to review a proposed budget, not a budget that is in action. So we give them approved X amount of money, and they use it. And these three people are the ones that have to determine how that money is spent the rest of the year.
Eventually, next meeting, I'm gonna give you this 2 pieces of paper. I'm not gonna give you now because you got a lot of stuff in your mind. Taxpayer are right to know with their money it's spending.
Right.
Right? You know that, right? I take it, you know. You read these 2 pages and you find out what they've been doing. Okay?
Well, I'll work for next year's proposed budget first.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Excuse me, Rudy,
Yeah, yeah.
every month, our town manager, Jim, gives you a copy
Yes,
of what gets
I
spent.
appreciate.
And those dollars, let me finish, please. Those dollars are what were approved by the voters last March. And that's the money that we're spending. Only the money that we have in the budget now.
No. I can mention a couple of things that you guys spend a lot of money
Like
and
what?
nobody knows about.
Like what?
Like what?
You give me a specific example.
So,
Fire truck
Rudy,
that we use for ARPA funds.
Rudy, do you understand the ARPA funds that came for that Suburban, or for that Tahoe that you wrote in the paper?
Rogers, nothing is free in life. Nothing is free. Read our letter. Twice. No one. Twice. Maybe you learn.
While he's on that topic, I hate to stir things up.
Then
And I don't know if this has anything to do with it or not, but we had an issue many years ago, I'll go back 20, where there was I think the fire department got a ladder truck, there was something lease and everything else, but the town voted on a very simple, I think it was even a petition warrant article that went through, and it was basically stating that no department can buy, lease, or do anything for any equipment, and I don't know the values, I think it was over $5,000.
65,000.
Was it 65? I don't know what it was. Was it 65,000? Okay. But does this fall under that?
Brian, those ARPA funds were accepted last year by the board, 307,000. Tonight, they accepted an additional 307,000.
That's fine.
No, but when they get those, any penny of that being spent is brought back to them, so they know exactly what is coming
Oh,
out.
I'm not arguing that. I know they audit the heck out of it.
No, and that's why I was saying that truck didn't come from the
I'm not
taxpayers.
talking about
No,
your truck.
No, I know, but the way that town ordinance was written, it was written because of that, and it stated anything that's purchased over that dollar amount has to be voted on by the town.
There was a
Okay.
$5,000
and that's all I was
line
bringing
that
up.
was on the
That's-
school
It
side.
is appointed by the town and no public session. That is mean nobody's there. Do you understand that?
Thank you.
Anyhow, I'll just bring
Look
that up.
forward to working with you.
Yes.
A couple of things I just have questions on. One is IT. You had mentioned the laptops, which I'm in favor of.
Can I
You
just,
work
Yes.
with Diane. if you
yeah,
need to.
we'll set up a date.
Yeah, can I give it?
That's all I wanted to do.
dates?
Thanks.
I think we gotta write something
Can I go?
about the
Yeah.
budget.
Real quick.
I share it, yeah.
And I think I need the town manager on this as well, but laptops and IT, and I'm only bringing this up because we're like everybody, and prices on IT are going up. But two things. One, the town needs to work with the school system. The school gets all their IT equipment 80 to 90% free. I can tell you right now, they've got an extra probably 200 laptops out there that are not even a year old that they would probably give you. And so you'd be talking with Matt Champagne on a regular basis. Matt met with Andrew when he was here, working to be as a consultant with the town office, helping to, I guess you could say, counterbalance the information that, and I say this to be honest, Matt's my son-in-law. Before SNS I get information from SNS all the time on what I should be doing. I run it by Matt. Matt has saved me hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. And other people. He does this with the school system, the amount of money that he saves by just knowing what's out there, constantly looking, and that's what they get. But the town should be working with the school, because once the school gets it, and say it's a year old, they can give it to the town. I mean, they're in the process, I think, of getting, I don't know, it's ungodly expensive new server that they, or something that's gonna protect for IT, and they get one every year. You guys can get the old one. So my next question is, on that IT, is the town set up, like with these laptops for everybody, are they, I'm assuming you guys still have like a server and everybody's logging into the server for security purposes? So if that's the case, you guys don't need laptops. You should be operating off from tablets. They cost $200 to $300, and it's just internet where all your work is done off the website. There's absolutely no reason to spend ungodly amounts of money on laptops, and most people don't realize this.
So
But-
Brian, how would they supervisory of the checklist, because that's exactly what they take to
Yeah.
the polls. They
Well,
have to
this is
have-
what I don't know. This is what I'm just saying
So
this
we
out.
wanna share that
If
with-
they have a website that they're going on, and if it's downloaded or whatever, I'm just saying, if it's web-based, you don't need a laptop with a memory. That's where all your expenses come from. You just have, it's the same as a laptop, but it's all online. But you don't want the internet to crash and not be able to have it when everybody
And
comes,
that
so you
was
need
the-
a hard drive.
And that was the problem that came this past election, and the supervisors came to me and said, look, this last election we had, our computers crashed, SNS had to come because we couldn't get on anything.
That's perfect.
And that was the issue, and they actually asked Judy back in 2019 for new laptops. And here we are in 2022, and nothing was ever done. And then, like I said, last year, they crapped out on them during the election.
Equipment right now has a 2-year max, period. That's all it's
Yeah,
good for.
absolutely,
So-
and these were Windows 7, so.
So last mine is, I know you guys tabled Parks and Rec, and I guess it was on, I just really learned about this at 2 o'clock today. I have put myself out there before when it came to the Mount Eustace ski tow as a reminder. Myself and the prior town manager are the ones who drafted the existing lease. We yet again, did not have an attorney involved for reasons. Attorneys cause problems. It was run by town council before it was put through and signed, and there were some little quirky things adjusted, but nothing serious. That lease was drawn up for multiple reasons. Most important was to protect the town. And there are many things in there that you're not aware of, and I'll be more than happy to go over with everybody. But there's a lot in there primary to protect the town and the townspeople. Secondary, where there was insurance, there was laws. And all that is built into a lot of that's there. And a lot of it had to do with the insurance and the laws, because I'll be honest with you, when it comes to skiing and recreation, there isn't much insurance out there, and the laws don't protect you like they should. So, before you go too much further with this, and if you're getting attorneys involved, keep the attorneys out of it. The existing lease was there. I can go over it step by step. I still have the originals that we did. You know, Fred Moody, if he's around, I'm sure he could probably give his input as well. But there's a lot there that before you make any decisions, even with attorneys don't even understand half the stuff that's out there when it comes to recreation and laws and the liability issues. One important thing is the law that the town has gone by, and everybody else saying it's a recreational, you can't hold someone liable for if they're injured doing certain types of recreation. It doesn't mean you can't sue. And trust me, we insure at least 200 different recreation entities that are all throughout the state. The lawsuits are starting to pour in. They start at $10,000. That's just to make it say the lawsuit was bogus, and that's increasing. So again, there's a lot in there to protect the town, but no one's against the ski hill or other means of recreation, but the lease, that the way it was written was there to keep attorneys out of it protect the town, put recreation out there and put as much of it out there as possible. So again, I don't mind going over, if you wanna go line by line, I don't mind. But there's basically, the lease that was there is a very specific reason for each and every little thing that was on there. And before that if that changes, it has to go to the vote of the townspeople. That's the way that was. We had to go through the regular process when we, at Parks and Rec, put that through. We had to have 3 meetings. The amount of townspeople that showed up were in the hundreds at each meeting. Very concerned with exactly what was going on, how it was gonna be, with any changes and everything. And we said right in it at the time, if it was ever gonna be changed, it yet again had to go in front of the town. So,
Thank you.
that's it.
Okay. One thing, yeah?
Mr. Casey, I respect your opinion. but I-
That's Brian.
Yeah, I got your email.
I,
I printed it
I
out.
respect your opinion, but I've been doing this for 24 years. And every council I've ever worked with that says we're going to save money and excludes an attorney, 90% of the times, those are the cases that you get nailed on, and those are the cases that cost you money. There's a reason that are attorneys. First of all, we saw here this evening, Mr. Ward disagrees with maybe the attorney for the state. That's why we have courts.
I didn't say
Because
exclude
that's the
them. I
referee,
said
but
you
to
leave
exclude
them out.
attorneys from liability
No.
is a scary thing.
No, you don't exclude them. I said you leave it out until the end and then you let them review. That's what we did. It cost the town 0 for that initial lease, not 1 penny. Because town council looked at it, we had it all done, it was very simple, everything. The more you get liabilities and legal stuff drafted in there, the more problems you're gonna get. Again, we said if it ain't broke, don't fix it, keep it simple.
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
7:22.
Rudy seconds.
I second.
All those in favor?
Who was second?